one that gets folks the most on this test, because you'll get a nice question and answer A is exactly what you're thinking, because you've read the question and you've absolutely formed an assumption bias along the way. You've got one where it's like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I was thinking, that's A. And you click A. I can almost promise you it's wrong, okay? If you think you have the right answer leading into the multiple choice ones, and then you read the first multiple choice and know that for sure that has to be the right one, just make sure you read the other ones, because there's another one that's more complete. And that's what will get 9 times out of 10 the unsuspecting pilot, the person who's in there. And it's a fair test. I like the way that they did it. It's not, I think they call it a reactive test or a responsive test. I'm not sure what the exact word is for it. But someone asked me in one of my classes years and years and years, more than a decade ago, they asked me, they said, hey, is this one of those, is it a responsive test? And I didn't understand what they meant. But apparently, there are tests in the medical field, maybe in law or something, where as you go through the test will change based on your responses. So if you're responding vigorously and correctly to certain test questions, it'll start erasing those from the bank and say, okay, he knows that. Let's get something else. And then if you have one or so that you get incorrect, then it'll load those in there. I don't know. I guess I don't understand the thought process on that. To me, it seems all wrong. But I can promise you that this test does not do that. When you enter your credentials and you click the button begin your test is made. That's it. Test question 1 through 60 is exactly 1 through 60 the whole time. It's not going to change no matter what.
I did my EMT test.
Yeah.
It was a responsive test. So the way they compensate for the fact that they swapped questions on you is the fact that you can have anywhere between 80 to 125 questions.
Yeah.
That was at least for the EMT course. So if there's a section that they want to ask you more about, they'll add more questions to your test. So there's a chance of you finishing in 80 questions, and there's a chance you finish in 125 questions. That's the way it
yeah, that's really tough. This test won't do that. So I was surprised when they asked me everything that I've always done. Well, I guess I've always done stuff that wasn't for real smart people, right? I did Army and I did flying. So that was it. It was like, here, go, grab this, move it there. Okay, good. Grab this yoke, push that in there. It's pretty easy stuff. None of that stuff really took a whole lot of thinking. There was some mental acuity along the way and some responsibility and maybe a little maturity that I had to develop, but certainly, none of it was in the medical field. Okay, good. So do you know, were there any one specific or two that you wanted? I'm asking this for a reason. Today we're going to cover one of the sweet spots, 2 of the sweet spots of the course, holds and approaches. All right? And they have some pretty good questions in the book. If you go through those questions, and please do, if you go through those questions and you get to one where you're like, wow, how in the world is this? I can read the knowledge key, the answer key. I know you guys are going to find the correct answer. That's great. That's what that's there for. But just because they give me the correct answer doesn't mean that I know necessarily how they came up with that answer, or how in the world the one that I came up with was incorrect. I knew one time, I knew the FAA test very well because they published it. The full thing, the entire question bank. It was online and you could download it and you could search through it. So I knew that very well. By the time someone started asking me one of the questions, I usually knew exactly which question that they were looking for, especially because there were certain ones that were just difficult and tricky in a sense. But they no longer do that, and that's fine. We don't need that. What we need to do is just develop those skills of, I don't understand how I got to this. Why was that incorrect? So tonight, please do the questions. A little bit different day today. We're getting a little more technical, a little more procedural, right? And so we're shifting gears from some of the things that we've known or slightly known or heard of before, maybe into the unknown, which is welcome for sure. Okay, day 2 we're going to go ground lesson 8 through 15, no stage 2 exam. That's tomorrow, and then day 4 is the other exam. The ground school schedule didn't change. If you got your phone on, please put it on vibrate. That's fine. Don't disturb each other. We had a great class yesterday. I'm sure it'll be about the same today. Chapter 4, we're going into departures, okay? Everybody ready?
Yes, sir.
Ready, set, go. If you're not, it's ready for you. All right, departure charts there are 12 sample questions in the guided flight discovery. So at the end of the chapter, there's 12 questions. We won't have time to do that today, but you guys can certainly do those after you get home tonight. Okay, throughout the remainder of today, and a lot throughout the course, you're going to see JEP and FAA. All that means is that this is something that's available commercially. You can purchase it. It's more than likely what you'll use as a professional pilot. You won't use these as a professional pilot. In fact, some pilots will tell you they have no idea how to read these. I think that's embarrassing. But this is where your life is right now on the FAA side. And what drives that is typically budget. This is available for free. You can get printed copies. You can get a bound copy or loose leaf copy of all of the charts that you need for your check ride at a pilot shop at a reasonable cost, right? You can download and print those. So there's just a much more budget-friendly option over here for the FAA. And usually that's what your examiner is going to use. They have other schools, I imagine. I heard yesterday that there's another school down here that uses the JEP charts only. Interesting enough, I'm sure then that they have examiners who also come in and cater to that process. But what we've used and what we experience here is that everyone's using the FAA charts. So that's where our emphasis is today. The climb and descent table. Anybody got a wild idea where you can find the climb and descent table while you're taking your test?
In the legend.
Sure. Yep. In the legend. Do you know if you'll ever be referred to the legend in the test?
You will not.
Yeah, you will not. Okay. So that's there. This is free, let's call it easy money, right? Too easy. If you want it, it's there for your taking. You just have to get in there and look for it. I think that one is not table. I think that one is legend 16 or 17. Now, this is coming out of memory from a while ago. I used to know pretty good which legends were which tables was which. It was just too much information, honestly. You don't need that. Look for it and you'll find it. It's in there. There's a table of contents if you get lost. So using that table, I can determine climb gradient of whatever in the world, right? In this case, it tells me that I'm looking at a climb gradient 308 feet per nautical mile at a ground speed of 90 knots, right? And that gives me 462 feet per minute climb. Let's talk about that for just a moment, because there's a real, I would be surprised if you don't get some question concerning this one. And there's almost a magic to it. The departures are going to assign my climb gradient, right? The angle that I have to climb away from this terrain or these obstacles or these other airspaces, whatever it is that I need to climb over, right? That minimum climb rate is assigned to me in feet per nautical mile. Just curious, why would they give me feet per nautical mile? Let's think. Do we have anything in the airplane that shows us feet per nautical mile? Any gauge? Is there a gauge in there that shows that?
VSI.
So that's feet per minute, right? Is there anything that shows me feet per nautical mile? Nope and nope. Yeah. So why do they show me? Why do they show me and give me and assign to me feet per nautical mile in this publication?
We are enemy for them.
Why, there you go. Yeah, to confuse the enemy. This one, not so much, but I like your enthusiasm on that. We can go with that anyways. I'll take that as a good answer.
Is it because different planes fly at like different speeds?
Perfect. And it might not only be different planes. It could be different pilots.
Okay.
Perhaps I fly on, typically in a transport category airplane, you're going to have a low speed climb schedule and a high speed climb schedule. It depends on what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish with this jet. Okay, so coming off the ground, I'm going to climb at whatever's required for this. The book gives me some numbers for that too. The departure will assign some numbers for that, but I might have some preference. And if it's not assigned to me, hey, you have to hold 230 knots on this climb out, well, I can hold whatever I want to. I can hold 200, all right, get out of there quick. I can hold 250, that's usually what we want to do, get away and up, right? So it's going to assign that based on, I can go to whatever speed I want to really. But the angle doesn't change. It's rise over run. How do I get a gradient? How do I get a slope? Rise over run. So that's what I have, feet per nautical mile. Then this chart allows for different airspeeds. So for different airspeeds, I'll have this climb rate that I look at on the VSI. Okay, so that's exactly why it's that way. Okay, here's your departure. Anybody flown a departure, right? Someone flew the IFR 250. Maybe they took off on, what did they used to call it, the Fort Lauderdale 7. Well, now FXE has a ton of different departures. So it was the Fort Lauderdale 7 Thunder transition, but not any longer. What do they call this thing? They brought a bunch of arrivals into the area too, and I'm not a fan of them. They all slow you down like 200 miles away. I'm like, why am I doing 250? And I'm worried, what is happening here? Well, let's see what we got. Let's look at FXE. And procedure departure. So I got the Be Nice 1. Oh, that just sounds so nice. That of course is jet only. Here's one for piston. So the Doral 1. Have you guys flown a Doral 1 with any kind of transition?
I tried.
You tried?
But they just vector me instead.
Of course they do. You're not fast enough. You're not doing anything. The last thing that controller wants to do is watch you inch down their scope. You know, trying to find the Doral 1. They're like, just turn left and go away. How about that? So yeah, you're not going to get one. But they are here. You can look at them. And here's the departure chart on the screen. So I can see what my airport is, the city, right? Of course, Jeppesen, and this one is a Jep chart, of course. But it has my index, so we can all say, okay, I'm looking at Fresno Yosemite International 10-3B, and my co-pilot or the other pilot in there with me, it could be flight instructor, whoever, if we're flying different airplanes, they can validate that they're looking at the exact same chart. Right? I got this departure, I have lost comms usually right there, and then go straight down. It gives me a heading section, so some sort of coursing, right? Break everything up that you do with an airplane into lateral and vertical navigation, okay? Until we get next gen, and next gen goes into a little bit more, I'm really excited for it. But for right now, just break everything that we do into lateral and vertical navigation. So this tells me I'm going to follow along some course. This course is really easy. You know, radar vectors 2, your assigned route. Oh, wow, that's really hard. Why didn't you just tell me that? Well, because there's some other information in here as well. Maybe it gives me, of course, the procedure name, lost comms, navigate fix, minimum off-route altitudes. So where do I need to be so I don't smash into any kind of granite? Minimum safe sector, takeoff obstacle nodes, takeoff minimums, initial climb and routing. So what does that climb look like? Not only just radar vectors, but what is my climb? And what's the top altitude? When I roll out of here, there's a top altitude listed, and it's on JEP charts, it's on government charts, it's on everything. If my initial contact with departure is, hello, I'm 1 Mike Echo, and I'm flying on the, which one is this? Let's see. Yosemite 3 departure. I'm on the Yosemite 3. I'm at 700 climbing 7,000. Great. So they tell me climb via the SID. That's great. If there was a altitude here, I'd roll that into the altitude pre-selector. That's as high as I'm going to go. This one, the top altitude, is just assigned by ATC. So whatever I received in my clearance, if they told me 2,000, 7,000, whatever it is, I don't even know if 2,000 will work here. It's got a little bit of terrain. But I roll up, and then that's where I climb to, right? And then you get your departure frequency off that chart as well. A lot of times, they're not going to tell you your departure frequency in the clearance because it's on the chart. There's no reason to do it. What do you got?
I have a question about the revision date. What is that exactly? Because I know some pages, some plates have an effective date as well. Like by the index, there'll be like an effective date. I think like a couple of pages further, we get an example.
Yeah. Okay.
But like the revision date, like what is that exactly? Because I looked at the FAA plates, and they just have like the effective
date, and that's it.
They don't have a revision date, so I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, we'll have to cross that one. Let me cross that one with you when I get there. So, but the important thing is making sure everyone in there has the correct date. On the iPads, it's really easy. Someone didn't download their stuff. This one has a different database than you do, and you may be looking at two entirely different charts. So here for the FAA, we do have, again, the Yosemite 3 departure. Very, very similar stuff. Lost communications is down here. There's my departure route description. What does it look like? Climb on heading 112, thence. Thence just means then do something different, right? If I'm taking off on a different runway, climb on heading 292, whichever runway I'm heading on. Whichever runway I'm taking off on, follow that heading, okay? And then maintain ATC assigned altitude, expect clearance to filed altitude in 5 minutes after the departure, okay? Relatively simple, top altitude as assigned by ATC. As we go through the chapter, you'll see there's a couple more. There are a few more that get interesting, okay? All right, here it is, the JEP chart. Let's see if we can go right to, boom, Mullen 8, right? That's it, the Mullen 8 departure. Okay, so 4-1 Mike Echo, clear takeoff. Which runway do I have here? Runway 10, runway 10 left, clear for takeoff. Good, 10 left, clear for takeoff. Contact departure. What frequency am I going to? Let's see. NorCal departure, yep. 35.1. All right, so they didn't tell me what my departure frequency is, but it's right there. That's something that I really want to set up before I take off, of course, but it's on the chart. So 35.1, what am I telling them? We're crossing through 700 feet right now. What are you saying to NorCal? What's that sound like? No?
NorCal Center.
Good. Well, departure.
Or
okay.
Departure tail number.
Good.
Then you say like at 700 climbing.
Why am I telling them my altitude? Does anybody know? And why do I do that every time? Because you have a new controller. And the new controller needs to validate your altimeter. It has to be within theirs, within some certain tolerance. I think the tolerance is 200, 300, whatever it is. But that way, if you were to go over something, they already know. They checked with you. The number you gave them was the number that they saw, and it's a good check. Okay, so you told them the altitude on initial contact, important. Don't miss that. What else?
And you tell them where your heading is, like.
Negative.
No?
Mullen 8 departure. If you're on that departure, all you're telling them is Mullen 8. Okay? What's the purpose of the departures and arrivals? What is? There's 3 words. Almost all the real gotcha questions, I guess, have 3 words. What's the real purpose of a departure and arrival? That is a test question, by the way. You'll get on this test.
Does it have to do with like?
Starts with simplify and ends with clearance delivery. That's it. They could care less which way you're heading, where you're going to next, where you came from, what altitude you're climbing to, unless it's assigned by ATC. Now that becomes pertinent, right? They don't want to hear any of that. Why? If you're talking on the radio, who's not talking on the radio? Anybody else, right? You ever heard when 2 people talk on the radio at the same time? Does that sound fun? No. There's only so much that you can get across. So there's no reason to start talking and saying, I'm heading on this, and thence I'm going to turn left, and thence I'm going to such and that, and then I'm going to climb to a minimum altitude. What are you doing? It's all on the chart. You have the chart because you accepted the SID, right? So you're just on the MOLAN 8 departure. All right. Thank you. Thank you for playing along with that. Here's what I see that's really embarrassing, is I see pilots who are, first officers, and they're in a jet airplane, and number one, they haven't forgot the aviators. I mean, come on, they had those years ago, right? You got to have the aviators. Number two, they're on Instagram every 2 seconds whenever the airplane's not moving, right, on the outside, taking all their fancy photos, right? But number three, they have no idea how to talk to ATC. And I'm like, why? If you spent half the time that you did on YouTube and Instagram that you did in the book, you'd probably be all right here, okay? It's to simplify clearance delivery. Okay, here we go. Jeppesen departure chart. You got an RNAV SID. Let's see if we got the same Smurf 7 here. Does it give me a Smurf 7? No. Okay, so it's just going to give me this. It's fine. We got the Jep chart, and that's fine. Equipment requirements. No matter what kind of chart you're on, it'll tell you exactly what you need. I rolled through here, excuse me, on the ForeFlight, and I was looking at the departures, and I could just tell right away. Look, the Be Nice is a jet. I don't know why they would have Be Nice for it. It just makes no sense. There's nothing nice about trying to get somewhere in a hurry in front of everybody else. The Felix 2, the Frisbee 1, right? And then the Doral 1. The Doral 1 says I can use piston airplanes. So I just clicked on that. Then I can come to that Doral 1 and take a look what I need. The very first one there says radar required. What does that mean? Radar required. I'm going to give you the answer because I know that a lot of folks don't know, and you've probably seen it before. That means that you must have a radar environment. I don't have to have radar on my airplane, right? Most of the time I will. If I'm flying something for the public, I certainly will. Do you guys have radar on your airplane? Absolutely not. There's no radar. So could I still fly this departure? Yeah. I'm in a radar environment. When would I not be in a radar environment? Hurricane comes through and blows down all kinds of crap, right? Radar is broken. Okay, good. Miami radar is broken. Great. They get the communication up. They're going to bring, what's his name? I think it's Warlord, I think they call it, the Air Force tactical combat controllers, whatever they are. They'll bring these guys in here and establish some sort of ATC really quickly. Okay, but maybe they don't have radar. Okay, fine, we don't have radar. That's a really, really strange and not very, maybe not very practical example, but I think we can agree that could happen. And that did happen in the Bahamas a few years back with Hurricane Michael, right? And then we still had Miami radar. Miami covers all of the Bahamas, but Nassau had no radar. So I have to have a radar environment. It says for turboprops or props, have to be filed at or above 13,000. Have you tried that?
Filing in the air?
No, you don't have to file it at 13,000.
No.
This is why English is difficult for pilots.
I've never been that high.
Okay, well then you're not going to get this departure. It says right there you're not going to get this departure, right? File it for 14,000. You'll get it, perhaps. Not in the book. I'm looking at ForeFlight, right? Looking at the Doral 1 that you guys have here. And then also serves Pompano Beach Airport, Air Park, whatever you want to call it. Terrible. Man, oh man, those tower controllers. Okay, so if you file at above 13,000, wow, look out for that one. Yeah, it's seasonal allergies, let's call it. Then you might be able to do it. Now, here, if you guys are following along in the book and you don't have your ForeFlight up, it tells me transition altitude, 18,000. That's common, right? Why do I need to know transition altitude and why is it published on the chart? This is for all operations. Jeppesen makes charts for the entire world, okay? So if you go to the Bahamas and you fly to some of these islands, their transition altitude is 4,000 feet. That means you go to pressure altitude 2992 and you start calling them flight levels at 4,000 feet. Descend and maintain flight level 050. And you're like, what did he say? Look at what your transition altitude is, probably 4,000. It's something there, below what he's saying, okay? But here I have transition level 18,000. Makes sense. I have to have DME, IRU, or GPS required. All right, I have to have some sort of flight management system. I have to have GPS. Good, one or the other. RNAV 1. So I have to have, this is an RNAV departure. I have to be equipped and authorized to conduct RNAV departures. Your operation specifications will show you, will tell you, and assign to you exactly. Are you equipped RNAV 1? Are you authorized for RNAV 1 departures? Are you not authorized for RNAV 1 procedures, right? And then again, here it is, radar required, okay? So for the example that's on the screen and the example that you guys have in your textbook, make sure you're looking at your equipment. If you're missing any of it, it's a no-go. It's just absolutely that way. There's not going to be a way that you're going to do it. There's no exceptions, okay? Radar vectors. ATC will assign a heading and altitude to maintain the ZOGAP waypoint. So what did this say here? Heading to, for assigned headings. So here on runway 4, if you look, climb heading 045. If I take off on 4, I don't have to tell anybody anything. I'm leaving the runway, establishing heading 045, and climbing to 2,100. Okay? I don't need to tell ATC that. They know that I'm doing that. Why did I tell them that? I'm on the Smurf 7. Okay? If I'm on 12 left or right, headings from 060 clockwise to 100. So it's telling me there's some area here that you're going to be assigned. Okay? ATC now on my takeoff clearance, tail number, whatever, turn right, fly heading, turn left, fly heading 070, clear for takeoff. I didn't get an altitude. Why? Because the altitude's already assigned. I have altitudes over here. Top altitude, jets 7,000, props 5,000. That's where we're going, right? You don't have to tell anybody you're going there because they already know you're going there. The idea is to simplify your clearance delivery. Okay?
What is a D7.7?
Distance probably, but where are you looking at? This? Yeah, that's distance.
The DME.
Yeah. MSP are at or above 3,500. Okay. So, following along is telling me that by the time I get here, I got to cross 7 miles out of that by 3,500, at or above. Doesn't mean I have to cross it at 3,500.
And what is that India Romeo uniform? It were requirements DME, and also India Romeo uniform.
It's an inertial reference unit. You have none of that. Okay. What it does is point-to-point navigation. I can set the IRSs on the airplane that I fly, and then we establish our position. And once we establish this position, using 2 different IRSs, the airplane and the computers on board the airplane constantly update its own position based on changes from that point. So I have a heading, and I have a position, and it understands and interprets movement, all right, or change in position. So from that point forward, this airplane tracks it just drops little breadcrumbs, if you will, and can maintain its own. The entire world explodes and blows up. I still have my own navigation. It's all internal. Okay. All right, here we go. Phoenix, Sky Harbor. I got an obstacle departure procedure. Now, the previous one, this is a SID, right? Standard instrument departure. You'll call them departures. That's common. ATC refers them as departures. You're cleared via the Smurf 7 departure, whatever transition it has, then as filed. Okay? That's a SID. Just know that that's a standard instrument departure. This is a departure procedure. What's the difference in the two? Anybody? No? Good, great, that's fine. This one, expeditious traffic flow. Get you up, out, and gone. Go somewhere else. I don't care where you go, but away from here. Right? This one gives you the information you need to make that initial climb and your second segment climb without crashing into any obstacles. That's it. Okay? Or terrain. So it tells me, here's my obstacle departure procedure. Climb heading 078, 3,000. then a right turn direct PXR, VOR, what is that, Sky Harbor? I don't know which one that is. Phoenix, I think. Okay, what do I have? I got some additional runway information, width. It tells me a lot of stuff about the runways. If I have any climb gradients, I'll have the climb gradients right there. Does it give me? No, I don't think I have any climb gradients on that one. Fine. Okay. So that's where I would go back to and go to my climb chart. For the speed that I'm flying in that airplane, what's my minimum vertical speed to go up? Right? Okay. Takeoff minimums. Okay, fine. ODP with a text, right? Departure procedure. Sometimes you'll take off in the Midwest, Wyoming, Idaho, North South Dakota, places like this. You'll find non-towered airports with no departure procedure. None. So you look up, oh, look, no departure procedure. Great. You guys have seen and I know that Fort Lauderdale Executive has one, but you guys have seen before, I imagine, where it shows departure and then it says here, takeoff obstacles notes, right? Anyone not seen that before when you're looking through the charts? Takeoff obstacle, or this page in the paper charts where it has the little T, the takeoff minimums, and then it gives you a departure procedure. I can't tell you how many times this is missed by pilots and by flight crews, right? This is kind of my stump the chump when I'm flying with somebody new and we're right in the middle of a valley and a mountain at nighttime, right? And I say, okay, you ready to take off? Yeah, boss, let's go. Okay, good. How are we flying out of here? Well, he didn't get a departure, so we're just going to runway heading and climb this thing up. Okay, good. Well, if you could see runway heading right now at nighttime, you'd see there's a big rock right in front of us. We can't climb it. We'd crash. No one's going to tell you. It's untowered. It's non-towered, right? So you take off, away you go all of a sudden, wow, things just got interesting. This will tell you, take off, turn right, immediately climb this heading, okay? Those are your departure procedures. This shows the same thing. Runway 7 left, 7 right, 8. Climb heading 070, kind of sounds like runway heading. 3,000, right turn direct to, I think that's a Phoenix VOR. So it's telling me exactly where to go. Apparently, once I get to 3,000 feet, now I've reached a safe altitude there to start a right turn and move this airplane's flight path out of the way of whatever terrain features in front of us there, okay? Very important stuff, yes?
Where those can be found?
What are you using for your charts? Are you using ForeFlight?
No.
Okay, are you using the paper chart?
Flight Plan Go and paper charts.
Paper charts, okay. This is in the, there are, I think, appendixes on the paper charts. I apologize, it's been a little while since I did it. Just a while. Anyone got a paper? Not that chart. The terminal publication procedures. The plates. No, that's fine. It's fine. You have the plates. It's in that. There's a section in there specifically designed for this. If you don't know exactly where it is, there's a table of contents right at the very front. And you're going to look for your takeoff minimums. Look for your takeoff minimums and go. Now, we get really spoiled here flying out of Fort Lauderdale Executive because we're flying in this area in general. There's nothing here. You can take off and you can climb and turn wherever you want to, right? And we get so accustomed to taking off and having ATC always tell us which way to turn and all that, and that's another stigma of mine. Look, ATC is a nice tool. It's a nice tool to have, but it shouldn't be used as a crutch. And unfortunately, pilots use it many times as a crutch. That's not the way this is supposed to work, right? So, yes, ATC will give us a lot of direction, but if you're taking off somewhere non-towered, especially you have terrain, it's all you. That's the you show. You want to live? Read the book, right? It really is just that crappy.
Another one.
Right. Yes, go ahead.
Any uncontrolled airport would have that?
No, not necessarily. So we have takeoff minimums, and if there are certain takeoff minimums and no terrains that penetrate the climb gradient, okay, there's a long list of rules. If I told you I knew them, I don't, because I don't write charts. People, whoever it is, whatever group of individuals and engineers and surveyors who write these charts and define exactly what constitutes a penetration of a climb gradient, right? They would be the person to ask exactly how to do that. We really don't need to know. We just need to read the thing and follow along. But what they've done is they've established that if you climb on this airport and you, by whatever circumstance, just happen to fly this exact direction and you didn't climb up over this, you would crash into it, right? And so they'll tell you about it. And if it becomes significant enough where I have to tell someone to make, at nighttime you can't see, not very well, mountains, whatever, unless they have a bunch of cities and a bunch of lights on it, you can't see it until it's too late. And then they have to tell you, you have to maneuver your airplane in a certain way. So just because it's a non-towered airport, that's not the trigger to make a departure, an obstacle departure procedure mandatory. We have one right here at Fort Lauderdale Executive. I think it's on runway 27, right? 27, yeah, it used to be 26, 27. You have to climb to 600 feet before you make a left-hand turn. You're like, what in the world is going on? Why is that, right? It's because either traffic, terrain, obstacles, there's something out there. That's the procedure. I have to do that. It's mandatory. If I don't do that, I'm deviating from my duties as a pilot. Okay? So yeah, the break point there isn't that it's a non-towered airport. It's just that it's an airport, people are climbing out, and this is the rules. These are the rules of how you climb out of that thing.
I have a question.
Okay.
If you go back, the revision date will have the effective date right next to it. So that's what I was
Where?
talking about. Right up top by the index,
Uh-huh.
you see the revision date on the left, and then you have the effective date on the right.
Okay, it's
So I
probably
have
some kind of
no
creepy
idea.
the only thing that I can think of that it might be is some kind of creepy Jeppesen thing, where Jeppesen changed their chart on the 2nd of November, and the federal government made it effective on the 8th of November,
Okay.
right?
Oh,
So I'm not entirely sure. I'm not going to waste a lot of gray matter over it. I know that it's effective, that I have to start using this one on the 8th of November. Chances are likely I didn't get it before the 8th of November. But if it was the 4th of November and I had that chart and I was looking at it, I would toss it aside and get the other one.
Got it.
Because it's not effective yet.
Got it.
That's all that tells me. It's
Okay.
kind of like grab, rock, throw. You know, just do what it's told. That's all.
Got it.
Here you go. All right, takeoff minimums. This one is still another Jeppesen chart, publishes diverse vector areas, climb gradient greater than 200 feet per minute. The FAA, same thing on the bottom, diverse vector area instructions, right? You can see your diverse vector area here with radar vectors. Heading is assigned by ATC, but that requires a minimum climb of 250 nautical miles to 3,100 feet. So this makes me, again, that forces me to go back to that climb table. When it says climb/descent table, please understand that the angle doesn't change just because you're going this way or that way. It's the same angle, right? Rise over run. But you'll need to climb at least a minimum of 250 nautical miles, 250 feet per nautical mile. Go ahead, what do you got?
How we can maintain this rate of climb?
Establish climb pitch attitude, add climb power. Trim to relieve your control pressures.
No, but how we can maintain, how we can recognize that we've got 500 feet per nautical mile.
Okay.
Using,
The VSI
using these charts,
and the time, yeah,
table.
Not the time.
not the time.
You good?
No.
This is very important.
I think his question might be like, what if, like, how do, like, there's a bunch of different airplanes at certain
Hmm.
speed.
That's
Either
right.
every single airplane will climb with that rate?
No. I have to verify my own performance.
That's how we, I think that's what the
I don't
question
think
is.
that's the question, though.
No, the question like I'm looking at executive RNAV departure, yes, and so I can say like we should take off from any runway,
Mhm.
and like there is no standard like heading or initial
No,
climb.
right.
There is a fixed point some else anywhere.
Okay.
Like how I can measure the distance to this point, how I can maintain my rate of climb. Because I'm have no idea where is the distance from the runway to this fixed point. But there is a takeoff minimum, like 500 feet per nautical mile.
Okay. What chart are you looking at?
Be nice one.
It's a jet chart.
Yeah.
Okay. Be nice 1. Required. Takeoff minimums for requires takeoff minimums for standard minimums. Refer to the airport chart. What runway are you taking off from?
27.
27. Okay. Standard or lower than standard if authorized, with minimum climb of 500 feet per nautical mile to 520 feet.
Okay, and what does it mean? Like
That was the very first slide. The very first one.
Okay, what is this 520? It's a feet? It's altitude or what?
Yes, that's altitude.
Where I can find it on the chart?
You're confusing me. I promise you, you're confusing me. Where can you find an altitude on a chart? I feel like it can't help you.
Okay.
Is that?
I think I understand what you're trying to ask. I'll tell you during the break. Maybe me.
No, I'd like to hear it now.
Well, I
Yeah.
think he's talking about, okay, so you see how different runways here have different instructions?
Okay.
So it's not on the chart, it's just based off of the instructions that you have for each, whatever runway you're using.
Yeah, like after takeoff, the ATC would vector us, yeah?
Well, not vector because you're following a departure plate, so it's just standard climb to 500 feet per
Not a
nautical
standard
mile.
climb.
Standard or lower standard if authorized with minimum.
That's takeoff minimums for weather. Your climb
okay.
is 500 feet per nautical mile.
500 feet per nautical mile to 520 feet. So the 500 feet per nautical mile is based off of your speed. So you have those charts that show you the speed.
This chart.
Yeah. This chart shows you the speed. So let's say your plane is going 90 knots in the climb. You see there it says you will, what was it? The 320 under it? Is that the
500 would be down here. It's not on this chart.
right? So
But we
that's-
could
you kind of
pull
like
it up.
You go on the chart and you find where your speed is based off of that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now I'm good.
I think I
Do we need to do slide 2?
No, we don't.
Okay, because that was slide 1. It was real important. Yeah, that's very important information right there. Where do I find this on the test?
the legend.
The legend, right? All right. Okay, let's get in here. Let's take a look. Takeoff minimums, fine, great. We've got those. Here I've got graphic, the graphic departure, obstacle notes, where I have different obstacle notes. This shows me all sorts of things for obstacle notes. Am I necessarily concerned about all of these obstacles? Am I going to remember every single one of those obstacles? No? Okay, good. So how do I avoid running into the obstacle? There's a ton of obstacles here. Am I going to have my FO over there with a pencil marking off every obstacle as he sees it along our flight path? I hope not. He's after takeoff checklist to complete, doesn't he? He or she? They got to finish this stuff. And if you're looking for obstacles while we're climbing out, you're probably not doing something you're supposed to do. Okay? So how am I going to avoid all that?
The departure procedure.
Good. Yep. The obstacle departure procedure, or and then that in conjunction with the procedure itself, the SID, that's going to guide me along the process of going. Now, how do I know for sure that I haven't hit any of these obstacles? Well, if I can see outside, see and avoid.
Mm-hmm.
That's the easy one. If I can't see outside, I just have to make sure that I'm still on my instruments. That's the only way. Okay? That's it. Why do I use the example, if I can see outside, then I can avoid the obstacles? Well, most jet airplanes have how many engines? Most, right? 2, right? More than 1, okay? So if I fail 1 at my decision speed, and this means I'm still on the ground, but I'm committed to fly. So now we're flying and we're climbing with 1 engine. If that's not a powerful engine, or if the airplane is very heavy, I'm not going to climb at a rate that I really want to. We'll still climb, but now I may have some considerations for this and that. Now the first officer certainly is getting a little bit busy, because after departure or after takeoff checks, yes, we're doing that. But one of the main concerns is staying alive. Make sure that we're not crashing into anything. Look out the window and make sure that we are clear of these obstacles. Okay. All right. Jeppesen publishes a diverse vector area, like we said, pretty easy. Requires a minimum climb of 250 nautical miles. 250 feet per nautical miles. Where am I getting that information? Okay, for the test, right? Where am I going to get it if I want to fly this thing? Okay, there's a chart, right? There's a table. In other words, I'll go to the table, and then how far am I climbing? I need to hold 250 nautical miles, 250 feet per nautical mile, right?
Yep.
Until what altitude?
3,100.
3,100.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's where you find it on the chart, right there. You're not going to see it on anything. That is where it's charted, right there. There won't be a picture of it, in other words. Just because there's not a picture of it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Okay? All right. Good. Next one, departure procedures. Let's take a quick break, please. We'll come back. We'll get into section B.